Welcome to RichieNicks, and welcome to the first follow-up Q&A to our first Composer Collab Lab video. If you haven't seen the Composer Collab Lab video, the classical video game boss battle challenge, then what are you doing here? Go watch that video first. Link in the cards, comments, and description. But these follow-up Q&A videos will contain discussions and answering each other's questions about our own music and everything. So let's just get into it already.
You're so looming and powerful in your high-backed chair.
Yeah, you're like,
camera from below.
From the below view, yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Let me judge thee from on high.
Yeah. So
We were talking about harmonics, and so I know, a lot of distortion and a lot of things bring a lot of harmonics. What would be a cleaner instrument that would have very audible harmonics?
certain xylophones, glockenspiels, celestes.
Harp. Okay, yeah, that sort of world.
Usually the fifth is more heard though, like the first harmonic. And honestly, outside of what instruments naturally have harmonics like that, there's probably like instruments in the virtual realm, the electronic realm, that already are double in octaves. Like they just come that.
Yeah.
You can do that in Surge.
Yeah.
Synthesizer. If anyone doesn't have Surge, it's free, so you should have it right now. And it is open
Fantastic.
source. It's really fantastic, and there's built-in harmonic adding frequencies into it if you go deep enough into that. So Surge is great.
That actually leads me to my first question in the lead conversation. If I don't know about other people, but I know that my first question whenever I come across a new composer is, what software do you use? Like, what?
Yeah.
So I used for this project Finale 2014, and I just used the natural VSTs that came with the
Cool.
the software. I pretty much use that. I mostly write in that same classical style that I did for the collaboration. So I have like 4 different versions of Finale that all have different sounding VSTs, and I tried to use an older one to make it sound like an older game, but it wasn't working. So I just used 2014, which is the newest version that I use, because the whole point to me is to make it sound like retro, and I can just take any MIDI files that I export from there and just throw it in Pro Tools and use East West Quantum Leap if I really want to make it sound like a real orchestra. So that's what I used. What do you guys use for software?
I used Noteflight. I used an online composition social media thing. And it actually turned out pretty well considering.
Your piece is really awesome. Is that where the sound effects came from too, or?
And I took away reverb, added gain, and compressed the file to give it more of that SNES feel. So I made it shittier on purpose to give it that feel.
That's awesome.
It's a lot with a little. That's pretty cool.
Right. What did you use, Terry?
Ableton Live.
What kind of plugins?
All of them. No, I had Surge. I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times. So I used a lot of Surge.
Okay.
I use a plugin called Helm for a lot of the sound effects, the risers and the growl riser that was kind of at the climax.
Yeah.
The swooshes, a lot of those come from Helm. It does really cool chiptune sort of synth. Some samples, plugin called Chip Drums. Yeah, I think that's most of it. Yeah, a couple more Surge. Yeah, a lot of Surge. Surge is fantastic for this sort of thing.
I always start on the piano because that's where I'm a classically trained pianist, so I always start there if I'm going to play anything. And I'll work out harmonies, work out if I want to change the melody. For example, we had the Ode to Joy theme, which I put into minor and then slightly adjusted in a few spots and did the inversion, which I talked about in my reaction video. And then I also have it on the piano kind of loosely figured out. I go right into GarageBand, although I don't use GarageBand sounds at all. I don't use very many GarageBand plugins either. I typically use a lot of the same things that Terry was talking about. I use Helm, I use Surge. I use the drums are usually I have some 8-bit sampled 8-bit that are really low grade that sound great. I use the drum sequencer. I think it's called Talia. I use that a lot because it lets me put compression on and then also pan my drums. So I can get a little bit more of a stereo vibe out of a sequence of samples. And then so I use a GarageBand because I have it on Mac. It's a very old, my beloved 2008 Mac here, and it barely works, but it does work. And then I do all my mixing and editing and everything in there. I just have a basic pair for mixing and stuff. I just have a basic pair of these Audio Technica that I use for that, and same thing Terry said. I think Terry put me onto these. These are great. So
Fantastic.
$150 if you're just getting into production. I have to say I have to give a plug to these because they're flat. You can hear the mixes. They're very good for the room. So anyway, so that's my
and on that note, I use these Behringer ones, and I primarily like them because they cover my entire ear. I guess I have big ears, and usually like the lobes are touching the rims of but I don't like that. So
that's funny. I actually bought aftermarket ear pads because I also have large ears, and I needed a bigger space.
There we go.
I was wondering if we all have large ears.
No, you have abnormally small ears.
Okay, I thought so.
All right, and then you also included, Charles, some sort of composition software when you made your little analysis video.
Oh right, I was using MuseScore for that, which is
okay.
open source and free. I also have Sibelius 7, and I'll use that a lot if I'm doing some sketching.
You see, when I was going through that, I wondered aloud if it was Sibelius or not.
Oh, okay, yeah, I have that too, but that was actually MuseScore. MuseScore just had a recent update, 3.6 something, and they updated their whole font, which is brand new, and it looks great.
I have you heard of the YouTuber Tentacruel?
I have, yes.
He made a whole video about how he and somebody else, like, they spent a really long time making that font, like going back and forth, and like he would show examples, he would submit it, and the guy would be like, tweak it a little bit, and like the tweak is so minor you can't tell. Like, I don't know how they were like being so specifically analytical about it.
Worth it though, because it looks great.
I mean, yeah, he showed the final result, and like I was comparing it to my finale, and I was like, I wish I had this spacing instead, like especially on like 8th and 16th notes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So Jake was the only one who included like sound effects instead of like just the music, and I noticed that we all were really absorbed by that. Like did everybody else feel like they actually beat a level when they listened to his song? Yeah.
I think I even said in my reaction, "Oh, I think we won."
Yeah, you were like, "Yay!"
Charles do like this. It's like like first thing in the morning. I was literally at work waiting for the client to show up, and I watched his reaction, and I was smiling like a goof watching Charles. I'm glad. You know,
oh yeah, we like the explosions hit, and all of us are like, "Whoa!" It's awesome.
Those are directly from the game.
Directly from Mega Man.
Mega Man X, yeah.
Oh wow, okay. I was gonna ask you that if you did.
So that one, and it's the sound effect at the end. That is also, and if you notice at the beginning, in the
door,
part of the intro, there's a which is the life bar of the boss filling up.
Yeah, I believe it made me laugh when I heard that, because I knew exactly what I was supposed to be picturing when it happened.
And I was watching it silently, and you said, "All right, here's Jake." And we're like,
yeah. That's what I was talking about. Like I said to Jake in text, I was like, it's very weird watching these reactions and imagining, like, not having the context, like just watching us try to listen to music, like, and not hearing the music and just being like, I
can see that. Yeah, Jake, I have to say though, I loved your use of just going for the dissonance. Like there's a lot of like slightly discordant polytonality going on, bitonality going on, and I like that you were just embracing that. So it was clearly like you were using and quoting directly the themes, but you were pitting them in a very literal way against each other, and I think that added to sort of the chaos, and also because you're going for that Mega Man style, like you said, it really reinforces that in a great way. So
Thank you.
Yeah, I think one of my favorite parts was all the high frantic stuff in like the background behind the melody in the second half of it. That like my brain just picked right up on that and just was like, this is the best part.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I want to piggyback off the compliment. So the bass, it's actually just da 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 da, which seems incredibly elementary because it's just the root, and then it goes up a half step, and then down to the root, and then down a half step and up. But there's that instability, that it gives. That complete, like, oh, it's very shaky. It's not even full steps. It's like, da, 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 da. And that's actually kind of a hallmark of video game music from that era. When it wants to sound like, oh no, the bass line tends to move in half steps only. So that was a strategic choice.
And it worked.
Oh,
Definitely.
beautiful, nailed it.
Terry, when he was listening to mine, said that it kind of felt like a Mario Kart track.
Yeah.
That's not something that I had in mind at all, but I totally hear it now that you say it. And I was picturing like a game aimed at, like, I guess that age group, like 9-10-year-olds. Like it was really cartoony, and that all the counterpoint with the piano at the end, that boss's like low health music, so it's just getting more frantic. Since we had the 1 minute limitation, like I would have just looped the call and response over and over again until it got to that low health point.
Mm-hmm.
But not, you say Mario Kart and I just picture it on some sort of
Racing.
yeah, absolutely, it totally works that way.
It's got that frantic energy to it.
Yeah. Especially that piano part. Everybody immediately seemed to latch on to that piano counterpoint, and that makes me happy.
It works, and I know a lot of it is just clearly from the 12 variations Twinkle thing, but why begrudge that works so well, like just fantastically. And I want to bring my point up again that you use the piano as a voice very well. And usually the piano is like, oh, well, we'll start with the piano and we'll add everything else to it. Like it's a spine and it's totally unnecessary. Could be scrapped. Here, the piano was needed and showed up, and it was great.
The smile when you said the piano was worth the price of admission alone. That was Jake's comment.
Nice.
Yeah, I don't know. I think piano almost always ends up in my stuff, regardless of other voicing, because I'm not a trained pianist, but it's probably become my most common instrument because of composition. Another note on mine, Jake went back and forth about deciding whether it was a victory or a defeat at the end. Anybody else feel like that indecisiveness of how it ended?
Yeah, I could see it being indecisive. I hadn't thought about it I hadn't thought about the full context of it. I was sort of enjoying the piece for what it was. I think what caught me the most, and I think it says in the comments, was the RuneScape vibe, because I'm a huge RuneScape, was back when I was like 10. And it's those, I realized it was your lower horns and trombones going blah, blah, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's like Dogs of War. Like immediately my mind is there onto that track, and it had that fantasy vibe, and it definitely, I know you were going for that sort of slightly medieval, slightly RPG-ish sort of thing, and I think you really captured that sound really well. I was immediately back in playing RuneScape, and Happy Clan me was just 8-year-old. I was like, yes!
That's awesome. I was gonna comment on that. Like, I've never played RuneScape, and so after watching your video, I went and like searched the soundtrack, and I was listening to it, and I was like, yeah, I definitely write this music.
Can we stay on you, Richard? I have a few more things to say about your piece while we're here.
I mean, yeah, this is going to be cut up in any order it ends up needing to be anyway, so it doesn't matter what order we go in.
All right, well, I have a gripe. Some of us can use distortion guitar. Some of us cannot. Joking, sort of. But I didn't, that was my one gripe, was the main part comes in and the distortion guitar came in, and I'm like, this doesn't work as well as the rest of it does. But then it comes in 2 measures later with the chorus surrounding it, or the voices, and I'm like, that sounds amazing, because when it's doubled, it has that weird otherworldly tone to it, and the chorus comes first. That was my one gripe about your piece, was the main part started and the distortion guitar came in, and I'm like, it doesn't do it for me. It doesn't work. I wished if it had the chorus like it does a few measures later, it would have been perhaps perfect, the whole thing. But then what would you do 2 measures later when you had to change it up?
To build it, yeah, and to change it.
So yeah, there's my gripe. I said it. I spoke my piece.
We're no longer friends.
Good night, everybody.
I
Awkward.
Jake is dead to us now.
We know who we're not inviting next time.
Hey.
No, I actually totally get it. I personally hate that. I would much rather my VST sounded like your guitar sound effect than mine. And of the 3 options I had for voicing the electric guitar, that was the best one. And that is a personal, unfortunate thing.
Yeah.
I agree that it could be better, but tis what it is.
Yep.
Sometimes you kind of go like try to pick. I know for me when I'm writing music, I'll often not spend that much time thinking out the exact sound. I'll find the closest thing to it and run with it, and then I'll figure out later in mixing, I can tweak it by EQing, by adding reverb, less reverb, adding gain, whatever, and I can push it closer to the sound that I actually want. Or if I have a good synthesizer that has a lot of tweaking ability, then I can go in a little bit surgically later on. But when I'm in the flow of writing, I often don't think that much about the sounds I'm picking. I just go, this will work, it's close enough to do the job, and then I don't end up, and then as the more I listen to it, the more it starts to gel. I think there's that process of like, it starts to fit because you've listened to it so many times. Its repetition legitimizes is the big thing that Adam Neely always says. Yeah. So it's very true. So the more you hear it, the more you're like, oh yeah, that fits. It's funny. I know you mentioned the guitar part. I didn't jump out at me when I listened to it. That didn't catch my ear at all. So I think so much in that same sound setting that if I listen to it very carefully, maybe I can probably hear what you're saying, Jake. But I didn't catch that. So that one went by my radar completely. So I guess it works in some ways. And if you catch up, you're thinking about the guitar, maybe it pops out more. I don't know. I'll take a listen again, see what happens.
And then, and then I'd like to go off of what you said though, like without really planning it. Like for mine, I opened the file creator and literally I just picked the instrumentation at random. Basically, I just went through the list. I was like, all right, yep, this is what I've used for boss battles. This is what I've used before. I got to the end and I hadn't used like the trombone or something, and I literally just went and stuck those like hits in there, like just so that there was something that didn't have a blank instrument in there. That's literally the reason that the trombone part exists.
You gotta have horns. You gotta have trombone.
I had to, right, like I wrote the trumpet part. It was obvious where the trumpet was going to be, but then like it needed low brass.
You gotta have the baritone range.
Oh, and we're focusing a lot on mine, but I think this is probably it. Charles, you called mine like this huge undertaking, and you made it seem like I put way more work into it than like you guys did. But in my opinion, like what you and Terry did is impossible for me. Like I would have taken like this entire time to get something of that quality through like electronic work like that. And especially the drums, all 3 of you way better at writing drum lines than I am. Like all of your fills are great, and I'm here just with like my drum lines, just like ride snare, ride snare, ride snare, ride snare.
I liked Jake's drums a lot, and I don't know if I brought it up. I think I drummed with them when.
Yeah, you do. Every tom fill, you're like yes.
They were fantastic, but more than the tom fills, your hits. You grabbed all the hits with the cymbals, like a drummer would, and like I did that a few times in mine, but yours were just like. I appreciated it a lot. I caught that, and it was good. I liked it.
I appreciated yours a lot, Terry. They were really sharp. And Charles too. Like your fills are awesome. All 3 of you. Seriously. Like I didn't even bother trying to write an actual fill. I just kept the drum keeping the beat.
That's cool.
Actually, I want to note something about Terry's drum as well. This is one of my notes I have for Terry. It's a good note. Terry nailed one thing about boss battles especially from that era, that none of us got, and that was rhythmic instability. All of ours are very rhythmically stable. Terry, when yours comes in, like I had a hard time telling where one was, and I'm like, oh, that's a good thing. That's a good thing.
The arpeggios are off by a 16th note in the first phrase. So they start on the E of 1. But the chord stabs establish the downbeat on 1, along with the drums. But then, yeah, the arpeggios are off. So that just 16th note gives the beginning that. And I carry that sort of idea through a lot of it.
I don't think I made that same note, but like I definitely had that same issue. Like,
I think my piece was perhaps the most harmonically and melodically unstable, which is what I aimed for, because I'm like, instability, good in uncertain situations. But none of us did rhythmic instability, and you did. Clearly it was a boon to the piece. So, because I was like, wait a minute, I can't tell where it is. And I was like, wait, that's a good thing. That's how these work. There's so many of like the early Nintendo boss battles, like this piece is in 23/4, or this piece is like 5/4, 7/8.
yeah, you're right.
That's
So,
awesome.
yeah.
I want to steal that now. I'm like, okay, my next boss battle piece I write for a client, I'm going to make sure it's very unstable rhythmically.
Yeah.
And mine was Mega Man X, so mine's 4/4 all the way. You know, it's like stable rock beats. So I guess I can't begrudge myself for that. But
It really fit that. I spent a lot of time in my youth playing Mega Man X, and it felt straight from the game.
Yeah, it was spot on.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Staying on Terry's, I had a really hard time deciphering where the classical pieces actually were in yours.
Can I show you?
Absolutely. Like, you should be able to share your screen. I listened to it like a dozen times,
Go
and
ahead.
I like can't.
Yeah. Once you hear it, I think it jumps out a lot more. So,
Whoa. Yeah.
shared computer sound. All right. So we have Mother, May I Tell You Bass is the name of this clip here.
Okay.
Vu Dirige bass, and then we have surprise bass. It's where the surprise symphony comes in. But this is the surge sound. It sounds like this. So the accented bass note, you can see the accents down here. That's the root of each of them, but it goes.
Very clever.
And then same with the surprise symphony. And then there's a bit of major minor stuff going on. So
Wow.
that's that. And when you have those soloed, let me.
Yeah.
It's there.
It's there.
Yeah.
And then we have Ode to Joy up here. Similar. So this is that's that sound.
I figured that's where Ode to Joy was. Just like,
So I do the first section, and then I do it up. And then I do it up again. And then I go down. It's in there somewhere.
dude,
There's a lot of turns.
it's so well hidden. I love it.
So then when you hear that one's a little harder to hear because I didn't accent them.
Yeah, I love that line too. Like, that's awesome.
Yeah. And then it goes into the.
And the flutteriness of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Great.
I like how major it is, even though it's a boss fight. You know, it sounds decidedly major, which is what gave me the Earthbound vibe. Hard.
Mm-hmm. Harmonically, it's a lot less in the Chrono Trigger space and more in. It's almost more nebulous because I do bounce back and forth between major and minor a lot, with less function and more like non-functional, kind of just like flowing and trying to have some tension and some vibes. And then rhythmically, I listened to Chrono Trigger's The Last Battle a couple of times through getting inspiration for this.
That
And that's where I got.
one.
Hmm.
Sorry, I had to. I'm sorry. Keep going.
And then, and then we do halftime. I repeat the theme, and then I repeat the theme at the original speed as the drums speed up. So we have the halftime drums. I have 2 sets of drums though, and one's doing straight halftime, and the other's still kind of it's almost in like a 6 feel. And then we go into triplets, which I think Jake picked up on.
Yeah, he wanted to ask you if you had polyrhythms in there, so.
I have some polymeter going on in here, and then some polyrhythm. It's 3/4, but 16th notes I forget what I'm actually. It's some flavor of triplets and.
That adds to the instability, I think, of the rhythm. It just kind of churns.
Yeah.
I'm glad that you actually explained like where like the Chrono Trigger stuff was, because Charles in our reactions was the only one who agreed it actually sounded like Chrono Trigger. Both Jake and I had like immediate reactions of other games. He said Earthbound, and my reaction was Time Splitters. I don't know if you guys have ever played that.
Yeah, I hear it. I do hear it.
Yeah,
I didn't have those in mind, but I totally get it.
Yeah, like I would, and that's like the way Charles said RuneScape is like he had nostalgia over that. I had nostalgia over Time Splitters when I heard your piece. A friend of mine and I, we went and we completionist Time Splitters 2. We 100% of the entire game, and it was like the most difficult thing that we've ever wasted time doing. But yeah, like that soundtrack like lives in my head now, so that was awesome. Jake pointed out that Charles was the only one who started with a low note, like the rest of us started in like the higher registers, and he was talking about how that seems like a really big boss battle staple, and yet only a quarter of us ended up doing it. And I don't know if you wanted to comment on that further, Jake.
I have it here. Yeah, it was nice. Yeah. We also had like something to sort of herald the piece, but Charles started with the low note. And the cool thing is he used a major 7th interval going downward, which is a really interesting choice. Da to the 5th, da down to major 7th, da. Really nice choices for single melody unison intervals with no harmony. Awesome way to bring it in.
Yeah, and it was one of his classical quotations. He went down instead of up, and what was it, Ode to Joy, or Twinkle Twinkle rather?
It was the same.
Yeah.
Instead of going to La, it was maybe a minor La because we're in minor, and then you go down an octave, which gives it that reversal. So it adds more of that. The half-step motion downwards is like associated with death, right? So you get that like darkness and gathering boss power and energy, and it's like hitting you hard with it and giving you the theme, but doing it in a way slightly off, and then you're into the next thing. So
right.
I think that was really fun.
Yeah.
Nice.
Thanks, guys. Yeah, this was a lot of fun. I hope we find the time to do another one. I know this has been crazy, but yeah.
There's so much room for more to be done with this concept, you know?
Oh yeah, that's true. All right, gentlemen. Thank you.
Thank you all. Have a great day.
Bye.
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 Thank you for watching this follow-up Q&A of the first episode of the Composer Collab Lab, being the Classical Video Game Boss Battle Challenge. We hope you enjoyed this follow-up Q&A discussion, and we hope to include viewer questions and critiques in future follow-up discussions. So don't forget to leave comments below and on the Composer Collab Lab video itself, and keep your eyes open for future videos. And the best way to do so is to like, subscribe, and share, and to hit the bell icon. We'll see you down in the comments.